Hello, everybody. This is Carol Maletta from the Parenting 411, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. As you know, I have been looking forward to this special edition of News You Can Use. I've been talking about it for the last week, and I am just happy for you to be here. I want you to hear from today's guest. As you know, I very often have people on that are experts or professionals in a particular area because I am just committed to bringing information that you all tell me that you want to have. And so young people can be professionals, can be experts in certain areas as well. And so I just find it's important to give them a voice and just let them share what they're passionate about, what they're doing in particular areas, and enlisting our support if need be. So today's guest is literally bringing light to two very important communities. Her name is Adie Selassie, and one area is teen mental health. She is serving as a bridge between teens who need some support with mental health and with clinicians who can provide that service free of charge. And as you know, there have been a lot of concerns about the state of teens mentally and emotionally as we continue to plod through this pandemic. And then she also is quite literally bringing light to a community along the Texas border, a community of immigrants who really need light, they need power, and the way that she is doing it is also providing sustainability and independence for this community. So a lot of people don't know a lot about the community, the Colonias down in Texas, as I said, along the Texas border. So I really am happy to have her come on. I think that you'll be enlightened and informed and hopefully mobilized to support the work that she has been doing. So I'm going to bring her on because let me tell you, she can talk about all of this far better than I can. So let me welcome her right now. Hello, Adie.
Thank you for having me.
I'm pleased to have you. I know I cannot begin to do justice to what you're doing. So I'm happy to have you here to tell my community about this. So let's just start off with telling them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a 17-year-old student. I live in Arlington, Virginia. My family comes from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, but I was born in New York. I have two younger brothers. I'm really interested in science, specifically the field of neuroscience, generally just the mystery of the human brain. So I'm beginning, for example, to study how technology and AI has a link to understanding intractable diseases like Alzheimer's and other brain injuries. So I'm interested in neuroscience. I also love running. I'm on my school's cross-country and track teams. I would love to run a marathon one day. And when I have the time, I love to bake and enjoy good cooking. And then, of course, yes. And then, of course, I love getting involved in my community, making things better, and bringing other people along the way.
Yes. So let's start talking right away about Care for You DMV. Tell our viewers what that's all about.
Sure. So as I've mentioned, I have a deep interest in neurosciences, but at the core of that discipline is a scientific study and a set of therapies that help people who have a range of neurological disorders, from serious brain injuries to mental disorders. And so I'm talking about conditions like anxiety and depression, specifically in young people. And what's more is that all of that got exacerbated by the pandemic because of all the stress that's associated with having a worldwide pandemic. And not just for the youth, obviously, but for the population as a whole. And also what the pandemic has done is laid bare existing health inequities and disparities, including those in mental health. So I launched Care for You DMD in 2020. I essentially created a market for this issue to bring demand and supply together. So our mission is to help every teen in the DMD area gain access to free mental health care. So I asked and challenged mental health professionals to donate their time from 2 hours to 6 hours every month. And once I banked a commitment of 2+ hours, I marketed that to youth in different venues, from my school, my church, community centers, different teen coalitions that I'm a part of. And we actually were able to make some connections. And so we've now provided, I would say, around 55 hours of therapy to young people who are now getting the professional help aligned with the issues that they were facing. And mental health professionals and those who seek mental health can go to careforyoudmd.org and register to help or to be helped. And so we would love to have you. Our email is contact@careforyoudmd.org.
So I'm wondering, are the teens who seek out this service, are they able to have ongoing appointments, or is it, are they allowed up to 2 hours, or how does that work?
So it's per an agreement between the psychologist or the therapist who's helping them and the teen. I don't get involved with how many hours they actually get to receive, because that's dependent on how much the psychologist is able to provide and how much the teen needs. And I felt that that would be like a violation of HIPAA, I guess, to be involved in those communications. But what we've done is kind of asked approximately how many are you getting, and that's how we got that approximation of 55 hours.
Yes, no, I was just curious if it's just in general, without knowing the particular hours, do they have one encounter through your portal and then that's it, or is it possible that they could, depending on the clinician, could they receive more help if they wanted without knowing the specifics?
No, definitely. The nature of my program is that it's ongoing. So once you develop that connection once we pair you with a psychologist, you guys can continue for as long as necessary and as long as the psychologist is able to provide. So it's definitely not just a one-off interaction.
And so that's still going. So as far as you know, teens are still reaching out and just still being served even now.
Right. Yes.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. So now let's shift to what you have been doing down in Texas, and how did that start?
Yeah. So in 2018, I traveled to McAllen, Texas, and that was a part of a school trip. We had the opportunity to go to China, England, parts of South America. I chose to go to McAllen. And in McAllen, we visited the Texan colonias. The colonias are a part of a group of housing settlements across the US-Mexico border, including Texas. And the colonias are very low-income communities that are devoid of many of the basic needs that we take for granted in the US. Along the Texas-Mexico border, there are about 2,300 colonias, and each colonia has, I would say, about 170 people. So that's around 500,000 people that live in these conditions. And so we went there as a school team. I was 14 at the time, and we tried to understand the situation on the border, how people live, the key social and economic issues that were impacting their lives. And what I learned while I was there is that not only are the colonias one of the most impoverished communities in the United States, but they also have really little opportunity to improve their lives or to get out of the situation that they find themselves in. And while they are on the border, many of these folks are actually born in the US citizens. So I was deeply impacted by my experience there. It was only a week, but when I came back to the United States, it really changed, not the United States, so the DC area. It really changed what I knew about poverty in the United States, just the dire living conditions and the circumstances that families and children were living in is something that I had never seen before. And so it became my mission to find a way to help the people of the colonias, I guess, just realize the potential they have to make a sustainable change in their lives.
And it was actually a slip there where you said that you came back to the United States, but it also just really shows, though, that a lot of people are unaware that there are conditions like that in the United States. And you made a very important point as well that, when you say it's along the US-Mexico border, people think, oh, these are people that are coming in. They're not, they're immigrants. They're not here only immigrants. But, as you pointed out, many of these people are U.S. citizens, and that they're living in these conditions. So it really is a blessing that you discovered them, and that you're finding ways to help. So tell us some of the things that the community needs, and how are you helping there?
So the first thing I did is just did some basic research when I got back, just to try to understand what were the specific challenges they were facing, and the root cause, and what had been tried in the past and what was successful. And so I asked those questions. I met with people down at the border, obviously did basic fact finding on the internet. And one thing I found that families were really lacking is access to power and electricity. And the reason being, one, many of them are not on the electrical grid. And even when they are on the electrical grid, they can't reliably afford their utility bills. And even then, due to climate change, there's incessant flooding, and the electricity in Texas and the weather in Texas is very unreliable. And so that makes accessing electricity and power really unreliable. And so obviously the lack of power has knock-on effects. It impacts health, education, nutrition, safety. And so that was one of the issues that I decided to tackle with my organization, Live in the Lights.
Mm-hmm. And you pretty much created your organization when you learned about this need, that specific need, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so tell us how you're utilizing solar. How are you doing that, to allowing that to meet their needs?
Right, so at the beginning, we were fundraising through crowdsourcing efforts, and we were using those funds to create a fund for them so that they could pay their utility bills during the pandemic. But we realized that that strategy was unsustainable, and I challenged our organization to come up with a more sustainable solution, because donations are great, but they're band-aids. It's not a sustainable solution. And so we needed to make a more lasting and self-renewing impact. So this new strategy involved solving the community's energy needs via solar power, while at the same time finding ways for the residents to create a sustainable intra-colonia ecosystem of commercial activity, which would mean trading with each other as small business entities like restaurants, bakeries, bodegas, health services, and using and growing their economic clout by deploying their already well-demonstrated entrepreneurial skills. And so we called this twofold mission the DSM, our double sustainability mandate. This mandate is both ours and the colonias, and it's about sustainable energy and sustainable economics. And one thing is, the sun is free in Texas, but it's free to people who harness it. And so it's about harvesting the sun and the sun to bring light and electricity to the community, which in turn helps the communities build a strong economic base because they're saving money, especially for the future of the colonias as children.
Now, how many people are in your organization, and what kinds of expertise and talents? Who's on your team? What's the makeup?
So we have about 10 members, and the way we kind of crafted that is by seeing the different levels of the different areas of expertise that we needed. One was solar, solar expertise. And so we have people from solar companies helping us decide what's best for the community. Also, my classmates and kids my age, because we're trying to involve the youth voice as well. Also, the process of starting a 501c3 was not something that I was familiar with. And so I needed help on that front, and I had people helping me there. And also one of our biggest partners is Proyecto Azteca. Proyecto Azteca is a nationally recognized self-help housing organization down at the border. And they're actually the organization I worked with when I went down to the border with my school. And they've been helping us actually get things done down at the borders. So whether that's when we held clothing drives, they would distribute the clothing. When we send solar panels down there, they distribute the solar panels based on need, because since they're actually down there, they can identify which families actually need it the most. And so we have discussions afterwards about why it was distributed that way, what can we do better next time, etc.
So I'm wondering, how is the community itself organized? How have they organized themselves to be able to access this help from you as well as your lead organization?
So it's really through Proyecto Azteca. Proyecto Azteca has set up a sort of list that they can register on if they feel that they want solar panels. And that list has, Proyecto Azteca has let us know that actually a lot of people have been signing up. And so when we send it down to the organization, Proyecto Azteca looks at that list and decides, because they're also familiar with these families because they work with them to provide them with sturdy housing. And so they're able to see who needs it the most and distribute it from there. And on June 24th, I think, or June 21st, but sometime that week in June, I'm actually going down there. And so I'll be helping with that distribution.
I'm wondering how supportive the state has been with your efforts, and also just kind of a sidebar. I'm just kind of wondering, where are the children of those families educated, or are they? What is that like?
So they are educated. They take school buses to get to school. I'm not exactly familiar, but it is a far commute, is what I've heard. And then in terms of the state, we have not had much interaction with the state. But what I've heard when we were talking to Proyecto Azteca in the beginning of our efforts is that they haven't been super receptive to implementing solar power on the houses themselves. But we haven't had any interaction with them. So, yeah.
So what's next? Are you pleased with what you've accomplished so far, and what goals do you have next?
I am really pleased with what we've accomplished. I mean, first, we've gotten 30 solar panels down there, or we've outfitted 30 homes with solar energy. So that's about, because each household has about 6 to 10 members, that's around 260 people who now have access to solar power, which is an amazing accomplishment. And by the end of this summer, we're trying to get 100 families outfitted with solar power. Another accomplishment that I think was, something we were really trying to do is involve as many people in our mission as possible, because the colonias are such a remote and forgotten about community. And so involving so many communities in different parts of America to help this community was a big goal of mine, and that's something we accomplished. So I would say those are 2 accomplishments of ours, and I guess just, again, getting 100 solar panels down there and also bringing together as many more people on our mission would be our 2021 goals.
Okay. And so I'm a little curious, when your school planned the different trips that you all could take, what was their original mission about having you all go down there?
So when we went down there, it was actually, so we did help the Texan colonias. Another thing we did was help newly arrived refugees. And so it was kind of a 2-part mission, I guess. But with the Texan colonias, we helped build a house by cleaning up the debris around the neighborhood. And we also, those little portable libraries that you can put around neighborhoods. So we built those to make the community a brighter place, I guess. And that was all through Proyecto Azteca. And so I would say our school was trying to educate us about a very forgotten community, inspire us to create a change down there, even when we left, because, we only had a week down there, maybe even only 3 days with the colonias. But, the ability to see that and then do something about it, even when you're gone, is something I think they wanted to inspire in us. And also just to recognize that we do come from a really privileged part of America. And so to see another part of America that is not living like we are gives a lot of perspective. And so I think that was another one of their goals.
Well, I tell you, I mean, they really got more than they bargained for through you. My goodness. I mean, you're having a tremendous impact on that community. I mean, it's just really beautiful. And so I can't remember whether we talked about it in the beginning, though. You're a rising senior, and you'll be heading off to college and all of that after the upcoming school year. So how do you see these two organizations operating when you're not able to give your 100% undivided attention to it?
So Care for You, I've thought about that question. I think Care for You is an organization that does not require a ton of support, because it's really just when a teen reaches out, when a psychologist says they can help, all I have to do is connect them. And so that's an organization that I think I can still be really involved in after moving on to college. With Live in the Lights, that does require a lot of maintenance and a lot of work. But one thing I've done is I've involved younger teens and younger members of my community. And so I'm really training and relying on them when I move to college to further our mission and get even more people outfitted with solar energy, and also involving as many more people as possible. So then that's sort of self-sustaining. If they involved more younger members, then when they grow up, there will be members to take over, etc. But I really do still want to be involved. I just obviously won't have as much time.
Oh, yes. I didn't imagine you just walk away, but I just was curious. I know that's not your spirit. I knew you wouldn't do that. So let's see, what can our viewers do to help? Is there anything that they can do to help further the mission of both of those organizations?
Definitely. So for Live in the Lights, I encourage you guys to go to our website, which is liveinthelights.org, and contribute, I guess, 3 things: their ideas, their time, or through volunteering, and any resources they may have available. So we've designed specific roles for people with different talents, people who know a lot about solar, writers, event organizers, fundraisers, recruiters, researchers, and even technologists to help us with continuing our innovations, to continue our environmental innovations into real impact. Mm-hmm. And so I would say the best way to help is by going to liveinthelights.org and finding the link to donate. We can accept payments through there. And, solar panels are expensive, but they're a very sustainable energy source. They can last, I think, up to 15 or 20 years. So we can absolutely extend the impact we make via donations, which are, of course, tax deductible, and our tax ID number is on the website. Another way people can help is by volunteering their time and sending us ideas. We want to crowdsource any new ideas people may have, and people can do that by sending us an email. Our email is contact@liveinthelights.org. Mm-hmm. And your emails will come to me and our team, and we will definitely act on them. So we would appreciate that. For Care for You DMD, if you are a psychologist or a therapist or know of any, that would be extremely helpful, because we have teens who need mental health help, but they can't get it unless we have psychologists available. So if you are either of those, that would be amazing. And then you can go to our website to sign up for that, or email us at contact@careforyoudmd.org. And I mean, if you're a teen who's listening to this that would want mental health help, you can come to our website, sign up there and we will respond to you and get you in touch with a mental health provider as soon as we can.
Wonderful. Okay. And I will also drop this in the chat for anybody that's watching the replay or anyone that didn't catch the website and the email. Now back to you a little bit. Why don't you, what are you going to do this summer?
So first of all, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to go visit the Texan colonias June 21st. And so that should be a great opportunity to see how the community is doing and see the result of my efforts. I'm also unrelated, but I think I'm going to be doing an internship at Children's National Hospital in neuroscience. So those are my plans for this summer.
Okay. Pretty busy and exciting. That's great. So we definitely wish you well. Do you have any closing words, anything you want to tell us?
Thank you to everyone who listened to this. I would encourage you to help the colonias and donate your time if you're a psychologist. Thank you, Ms. Muleta, for having me on the show. It means a lot, and I'm so happy I was able to be here.
Well, I am too, and I'm just trying to catch there's some comments. Let me see. Yes, one said, she is awesome. I wish her well. Let's see. Thank you for that, Deb. And then well wishes to the young lady. She's that comes from our cousin. Yeah. So some people have been watching, and of course, a lot of people are going to catch the replay. It's Saturday, so it's difficult. But thank you so much for coming on. I just think that both organizations and just really both causes that you've taken up are very important. And I think that more attention needs to be on both of them. So I'm hoping that people will be curious, particularly about the colonias, because you don't hear a lot about it. And so I hope they'll just check out your website, but also just go read more about it on their own and just see and learn more about what's going on in our country. So thank you again. And thank you everybody that tuned in. And by all means, leave your comments, your impressions, your questions. I will certainly see that Adie gets those, anything that you leave after this live broadcast, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much.